5, Chapter 6, Temperance. The following morning, Kain awoke to the smell of breakfast, and his mouth watered at the sound of burning bacon. It was then when he heard his grandmother's voice. In alarm, he placed his bedsheets over his head. He frowned when he remembered his age. He was an adult. He owned a house, and he was employed. He had earned the right to come and go as he pleased. He walked slowly towards the door, and he placed his ear in order to listen, and he turned as pale as a ghost when his grandmother opened the door. "You always wake up at the sound of bacon," said Esther, "and you can stop scurrying about and come sit with us." Kain meekly did as he was told, and shyly he asked, "How do you know that I was here?" "We placed a tracker on you while you were sleeping," said Esther candidly. "Where is it at?" asked Kain, feeling his skin and his mouth. "Is that even allowed?" asked Byron, raising an eyebrow. I guess," said Esther. Though with that woman it was impossible to know if she was lying or telling the truth. Esther finished making breakfast, and Byron and Alexia dug into the home-cooked meal. Byron was a vegetarian, but even he wasn't able to resist the temptation that was Esther's spicy, salty, crispy bacon. The spice combined well with the boiled eggs. "That gossip told your grandmother Oberon kissed you," tattled Oberon while Luke pointing at Alexia. "No, I told her that I kissed her grandson and that he liked it," said Alexia, twisting the truth as it is common among journalists. Esther lowered her fork, and she started to rhythmically tap the table with her bony index finger. Alexia had expected the old woman to cry or explode, and Alexia felt that he was doing Kain a favor by throwing him out of the closet. "Oberon called asking about you," said Esther, completely ignoring everything that Byron and Alexia had said. "He is currently in your house with your things, and I can ask him to leave if you find his presence unwelcome." "I think I better go talk to him. I can't just avoid him," said Kain, lowering his gaze. "But you can. You're not obligated to speak to someone that you don't want to. And if he becomes persistent, we can file a restraining order," said Esther dryly. "I don't think that is necessary, and if I tell him to leave, he will leave. Said Kain as a single tear fell from his cheek. And Esther came over to whisper to her grandson, and the gossips Alexia and Byron leaned closer, and they held in their breaths to listen to every word. "You don't have to tell him to leave if you don't want to. You haven't done anything wrong," whispered Esther. "I'm sorry, Grandma," said Kain, covering his face. "There's nothing to apologize for. You're not in trouble. I still love you, Kain, and there's no reason for you to be afraid," whispered Esther while patting Kain's back. "And you can tell me whatever you want, and I won't judge you." Kain cried while his grandma hugged his head, and Byron commented, "Your friend is a bit of a wuss." "There's nothing wrong with being in touch with your emotions," whispered Alexia dryly. "It is better to cry it out than to explode in a violent, murderous rage." Byron quieted down, and he continued to study the situation and to take mental notes. And he found the interaction between Kain and his grandma interesting. And he realized that his book would be far more interesting if the mother of the protagonist behaved more like Grandma Esther. Supportive but Sphinx-like in her words. The mother in his book required a bit more nuance to make her more interesting for his readers. Kain eventually stopped crying, and he finished his pancakes, and he got in the car, and he drove back home with his grandma, and when it came time for him to leave the car, he hesitated. "Did Oberon say anything?" asked Kain. "He told me that he wanted to apologize," said Esther. I see," said Kain. "Why does he want to apologize?" asked Esther. "Well, you heard what Alexia and Byron said," said Kain, sinking into his car seat. "I will believe what you want me to believe," said Esther sternly. "That isn't a very practical thing to do, Grandma," said Kain, pouting. "What do I care for the idle gossip of strangers?" said Esther, patting her grandson's hand benevolently. "You are the boy I raised. You are the boy I know. You are the one I trust. You are the one I love. You are the person that I choose to believe." "I love you too, Grandma," said Kain, kissing his grandma's hand with reverence. And his grandma always knew what to say to make him feel better. Kain finally left the car with his grandmother following close behind, and he opened the door with confidence, and he already felt certain about what he wanted to say when he came face to face with Oberon. And Oberon jumped from the couch the moment that Kain opened the door, and by the looks of things, He had been conversing with Kain's father, Jack. Oberon here was telling me about his failed gymnast career while I was boring him with stories about my quick rise and fall from stardom, said Jack, smiling warmly. I'm sorry, Oberon, said Kain first before Oberon had a chance to speak. No, I'm the one who should apologize, said Oberon, bowing. I do not know what got over me. Me neither, said Kain, laughing nervously. I shouldn't have bolted, but I overreacted, and I should have stayed and talked about it, but I'm a coward. And since I was small, my first instinct when dealing with any awkward social situation was to run away. And it was reckless for me to run away half drunk in the middle of the night. No more social drinking for you, mister, barked Esther. Yes, Grandma, said Kain meekly. Mom, he's only 23. Mom, he's only 23. Let him live a little, said Jack. 2 drinks, said Esther, folding her arms. No more, no less. Yes, Grandma, said Kain, lowering his gaze. If you two are done apologizing, then run along, said Esther, gesticulating with her hands. With a weary step, she went to her bedroom to rest her legs. She was tired, so very tired. But she had to put on a tough front for the sake of the baby. The so-called baby Kain went to the porch to speak openly with Oberon. So what do you want to do, Kain? Asked Oberon, breaking the silence. What do you want to do? Asked Kain, throwing the ball at Oberon. I had a psychic today, but I had to cancel it, said Oberon, and he had an irregular job as a party clown or superhero impersonator. It all depended on the theme of the children's birthday party. Nah, go to your party, I'm fine, everything's fine between us, said Kain. Am I still your friend? Asked Oberon. Yes, we're still friends, said Kain, amicably placing his hand on Oberon's shoulder. That single touch was enough to reignite Oberon's passion. However, since he was sober, he was able to keep his lust demon under control. Would you like me to assist you? Asked Kain. I can't do acrobatics, but I can shoot a mean water gun. Well, it is a choreographed act, and this helps avoid accident, and we will see next time, and I'll make no promises, said Oberon non-committedly. Oberon left Kain's house, and he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that things hadn't changed between them. And with nothing better to do, Kain went to the porch with a book, and just stopped fiddling with his guitar when he became aware of his son's presence. You can continue with your practice, Dad. I'm just here to read a book, said Kain. And did you work out today? Asked Jack. No, said Kain. And yesterday? Asked Jack. No, said Kain, closing his book. I better go jog at the very least. Kain changed into his shorts and a hoodie, and the weather was a bit chilly, and he jogged around the block, drawing safety from the familiar neighborhood. And since the running lifted his mood, he returned home to do a bit of weight training. And Jack changed the rhythm of his guitar to match the rising and falling of Kain's waist. With the workout done, he showered before getting dressed to go out, and after weighing his options, he decided to go paint a little to distress. And he placed his art supplies in the trunk of the car, and after a half-an-hour drive, he arrived at Sebastiano's Artist Collective. And it was a painting studio shared by a dozen artists, and from the outside it resembled a rusty blue cargo container with windows cut into the sides. And he went room by room in search of an empty easel to use. And he sat down in the back, and he placed his canvas before looking at the still life that the apprentices were painting. And he started by doing a rough sketch of the fruits with a light pastel brown paint. And once the shapes were defined, he painted the background. Your brushstroke is still a bit sloppy, said a familiar voice over his shoulder. It was Sebastiano. But when Kain was in high school, Sebastiano was his art teacher. Is this better? Asked Kain, attending broader strokes. You're painting the canvas, not stabbing it, said Sebastiano, taking Kain's hand, and he moved smoothly left and right. One of your little paintings so recently, said Sebastiano, bringing out a check. And here's your cut. Kain looked at the 50-buck check happily, and he placed it in his wallet to deposit it later. And he asked, which of my paintings sold? The large painting of the sad girl with a transparent blue splatter over her eyes, said Sebastiano. And who bought the painting? Asked Kain. A psychic by the name Irina, said Sebastiano, and she was giving a reading to one of my students when her eyes were drawn to your painting. You're finally doing it, Kain. Irina is the grandmother of the little girl I saved, and she really bought the painting because of her life's depths, mused Kain while he painted the orange. You didn't sign that work, reminded Sebastiano. She doesn't know that you made the painting. Irina does know. She is the genuine article, said Kain. If she's a genuine article, then why hasn't she won the lottery? Asked Sebastiano, doubting Irina's ability. And just be happy with the check and don't stop doing something you enjoy. Kain smiled sadly, and his teacher had never told him that he had a painting talent. And as things stood, he couldn't quit his job to become a painter. Quit his job. And this was the first time he had seriously considered leaving his job as a police officer. He had originally become an officer in order to become the man that his dead grandpa could be proud of. And after working as an officer for more than 2 years, the guilty feeling hadn't left. If he left his job, what could he do for money? He certainly couldn't pay his mortgage with his $50 check for a painting that he made a month ago. Being a painter just wasn't a viable alternative to his job as a police officer. He could return to being a mechanic. Doing that job, he never made more than $12 an hour. No, he couldn't afford he wouldn't be able to afford his house if he went back to working as a mechanic. Why did he buy that stupid house? He looked at a nearby standing mirror, and he still had a beautiful body and he danced well. Maybe he could become an exotic dancer. No, his grandma would have a heart attack if he left his job to become a pole dancer. And what other options did he have? He could go to college, but study what exactly? He would still need to keep his job as a police officer to afford the classes. No, this wasn't a viable option either. It was not as if he was passionate about becoming a doctor or a lawyer, and he dreaded being the final arbiter of another person's fate, and he could easily shoot a bad guy to protect an innocent. And it was a different matter to have a person die or wind up in jail due to his negligence. He was distracted from his ruminations by his cell phone ringing, and he smiled happily when he saw that Oberon was calling. "Did you finish your work already?" asked King. "Already. It has been 4 hours since last we spoke. And did you eat lunch?" asked Oberon. "I think I skipped lunch," said Kane, looking at the clock, and he added, "I got distracted while painting. I didn't even notice the passage of time." "Cool. What do you paint?" asked Oberon. "I'm going to send you a picture. It is nothing special," said Kane, photographing his still life. "Those are some nice-looking grapes," said Oberon, struggling to come up with a compliment for the boring-looking painting. "I like how they shine." If you like it, I can gift it to you," said King happily. Oberon looked at the painting before saying, "Fruits are not really my thing, and if you have any new sketches that look nice, they could really jazz up my living room." "Male or female sketches?" asked Kane. "I was joking, Kane," said Oberon, giggling. "I am not. As an artist, I regularly sketch men and women, though most of the time I do not have a live model to work with, but I try my best," said Kane shyly. "I can bring over one of my sketchbooks and you can pick the ones you like. I can even make frames for them, and your apartment could use some wall decor." "Nah, don't bother. Tonight I have a date. So it's not as if I'm going to have time to look through your artwork," said Oberon, smiling thinly. "I see. Have fun then," said Kane, his eyes watering in spite of himself. "Hey, Kane, just because I have a thing doesn't mean that I don't want to hang out with you. And do you need me to call someone, or can you find a date for yourself on so short notice?" asked Oberon in a condescending tone. "I can help for myself, thank you very much," said Kane, pouting. And he hung up the cell phone after saying this. And he called again, and he said apologetically, "I didn't mean to sound cross. I just don't have a long list of singles I can contact on such short notice." "You can always call Lola," teased Oberon. "Yes, I can always call Lola," said Kane without much enthusiasm. He called Lola, and on the weekend she spent all her time with the kids, so it was a no-go. And if he wanted to hang with her, he had to wait for her to call him. As this response reminded Kane of his ex-girlfriend Eugenia, he immediately friend-zoned her forever, and he looked through his contacts, and the only other single woman he knew was Dorothy. And he found nothing for the maiden, not even attraction, and since he had known her as Eugenia's little sister, he saw her as a sister as well. And it was weird. He felt weird about dating the little sister of his ex-girlfriend. No, she wasn't a good option for a date. And since he couldn't find a date, he called his best friend Karina. She wasn't single, but she was always looking for an excuse to party. "Hey, Karina, are you busy with Bruno?" asked Kane. No, we're not particularly busy, said Karina before yawning. And she was playing chess with Bruno in order to bond, and she was looking for any excuse to get away from that situation. Can you come with me tonight? Oberon has a date, and I called Dorothy and Lola, and they were too busy to go out with me. And I don't know any other single woman, answered Kain nervously. I know just the girl that might be interested in dating you, said Bruno. Kain realized that Karina had him on speaker, and Bruno added, my secretary is a really nice girl, but shy among strangers, and she reminds me a bit of you, so she might make good company. What's her name? Asked Kain. Her name is, said Bruno, and he looked at his cell phone before saying, Darcy. I'm going to send you a picture of the girl. And why do you have a picture of your secretary and your cell phone? Asked Karina, clenching her fist. Why do you have a cell phone? Because she's jealous of her boyfriend. I don't have a picture of the girl on my cell phone. I am getting her picture from the company website, said Bruno, showing Karina the photo. She fat, giggled Karina, seeing the class 2 obese maiden. Bruno gave a queer smile before calling Darcy. Darcy answered immediately when she saw that Bruno was calling. Bruno, what a surprise, said Darcy happily. Are you doing anything tonight? Asked Bruno. What am I doing? This is also sudden, said Darcy, jumping about her living room, and she fancied that the love potion she had placed inside Bruno's coffee had worked. And once she stopped hyperventilating, she added, No, I'm not busy, Bruno. My nights are pretty open. Kain needs someone to dance with, and you know how to dance, do you, Darcy? Asked Bruno. She doesn't need to know how to dance, said Kain, who was on speaker, and as long as she's pleasant company. You heard that, Darcy? You don't need to know how to dance to go on this date, joked Bruno. What do I wear, casual, semi-casual? Asked Darcy, extremely deflated, and she had been hoping against all hope that Bruno was asking her out on a date. You're going to a nightclub, so wear something flashy or sparkly. Sing something. What is it called? Do you know what I'm thinking? What word is it? Asked Bruno, rubbing his temple. Sequin, said Karina, guessing the word. Yes, sequin. I think that is what they're called. You wore a nice sequin dress the last time we had an office party. Wear a shirt made of that material and some jeans and a jacket, and just in case it gets cold, said Bruno, deciding Darcy's wardrobe. And I will get dressed right away, and I will text you my address, and I will be ready to go out by 8, said Darcy. With that said, Kain went home to prepare for his date, and he wore the first clean outfit that fell from his closet. And his father frowned when he saw Kain wearing an orange turtleneck with a green camouflage pants. And the pie was no longer ghastly black, just red-purple. Still, it was noticeable enough for a person to ask about it. Alright, so that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.